Greetings. Welcome back to Black Bear News, where we are discussing climate change, abrupt climate change, and the possibility of compassionate degrowth. Degrowth, meaning not less growth, but negative growth, as in de-escalation. Want to bring you a couple articles tonight, as I do almost every night. We're going to talk about resistance, I guess. Tonight would be a theme. One theme. First of all, I wanted to read this article by Nick Humphrey. This is about the ongoing cold. This is from yesterday, though. It is quite cold. It's still very cold. I think today is the worst of it for most in the Midwest and the East Coast. Extreme cold still forecast to overspread U.S. Wednesday and Thursday while Arctic Ocean Basin warms. There's the key. An extremely cold Arctic air mass continues to spill out of Canada and into the U.S. today. This is the result of a very wavy jet stream, promoting a powerful surface high-pressure system to plummet southward, and with it, the intense Arctic cold typically normal to northern Canada. The worst impacts from this cold will be Wednesday and Thursday. Wednesday morning will feature wind chills as cold as 50 to 60 below, with potential for isolated values down to 70 below in northern Minnesota into the Dakotas. That is an Arctic blast. For human health, it's the apparent temperature, which is meaningful, and a significant sector of the country will see wind chill values near 0 to minus 18 C. 0 Fahrenheit, which is minus 18 C. Overnight, Tuesday and Wednesday, wind chills capable of causing frostbite to exposed skin within 5 minutes of exposure, generally negative 50 Fahrenheit or negative 46 C, will be possible across wide swath of the northern Midwest and northern plains. Of course, while this disrupted polar vortex puts much of the eastern half of the U.S. and Canada in the deep freeze, the Arctic Ocean Basin is undergoing warming. Let's check this out. Abrupt climate change is accelerating the warming of the Arctic. This is allowing for major disruptions of the tropospheric polar vortex in the winter months, with the jet stream becoming extremely wavy, with pronounced dips into the mid-latitudes. The results are intense, anomalous cold events in a couple of regions of the northern hemisphere, while most other places experience anomalous warmth, including the Arctic Basin, as intense upper atmospheric high-pressure systems and warm ocean storms move over the region. So we have some anomalies, heat anomalies over the Arctic. Mostly around in the 4 to 7 C range, but some up to 10, 12 C, which is a warm anomaly. Anomalously warm temperatures forecast over the next 7 days in the Arctic Ocean Basin. 2.8 C above average over the basin relative to pre-industrial times. Also note the extreme cold anomaly over northern Siberia. Just some graphs here to look at. Air temperatures above and temperature anomalies below for 6 UTC Thursday, midnight CST Thursday. Cold anomalies of 20 degrees C below normal over parts of north central Siberia, with anomalies of 14 to 18 C above normal near the Kara and Laptev Seas. 14 to 18 C above normal. The cyclone is forecast to move over the Arctic Ocean, drawing in warm air from the Atlantic during this time. That is not good. Not good for the Arctic ice. The increasing wintertime Arctic heat waves with cold air pouring out into the mid-latitudes represents the long-term destruction of the Arctic air mass, keeping the high latitudes cold. As the Arctic warms, the temperature gradient with the mid-latitudes decreases. This causes the jet stream to slow, increasing its waviness. The waviness both forces more cold air out of the Arctic, replacing it with warmer air from the mid-latitudes. This is a feedback loop toward destroying Arctic cold, reinforced by long-term global warming. So while these intense Arctic blasts may remind many of the typical cold winters of the past, the frequency of the blasts and tendency in many places towards increasingly huge swings between very abnormal warmth and then cold and back again means more chaotic seasonal conditions. This poses hazards for not only human health, but the health and biological patterns of other organisms, as well as agriculture at the beginning and end of growing seasons. Good stuff by Nick. Good summary. Again, for those who don't understand, in the most simple terms possible, the reason why we're getting such cold temperatures is because the Arctic is too warm. Where the cold air should be, there is warm air. It pushes the cold air out to North America, Siberia, Europe, etc., wherever the wave is in the jet stream. And so it does not mean that the Earth is cooling. It means that the Arctic air that should be over the Arctic is displaced by warm air. This is an effect of global warming. And somebody actually explained that to Trump. Trump, had that dumb tweet about, where are you, global warming? We need you back. Or global warming, as he spelled it. And somebody, pardon me, somebody responded to his tweet and explained to him, just, said, it's because there's warm air in the Arctic, it pushes cold air, and that creates a polar vortex, and that's why. Science. So there you go. Moving on to The Guardian, something from The Guardian, and this is from or about Greta Thunberg. Our house is on fire. Greta Thunberg, 16, urges leaders to act on climate. So she had a speech at Davos. What are the people at Davos going to do with this information, I wonder? Swedish school strike activist demands economists tackle runaway global warming. Read her Davos speech here. Our house is on fire. I'm here to say our house is on fire. According to the IPCC, we are less than 12 years away from not being able to undo our mistakes. In that time, unprecedented changes in all aspects of society need to have taken place, including a reduction of our CO2 emissions by at least 50%. Please note that those numbers do not include the aspect of equity, which is absolutely necessary to make the Paris Agreement work on a global scale, nor does it include tipping points or feedback loops like the extremely powerful methane gas released from the thawing Arctic permafrost. At places like Davos, people like to tell success stories, but their financial success has come with an unthinkable price tag. And on climate change, we have to acknowledge we have failed. All political movements in their present form have done so, and the media has failed to create broad public awareness. But Homo sapiens have not yet failed. Yes, we are failing, but there is still time to turn everything around. We can still fix this. We still have everything in our own hands, but unless we recognize the overall failures of our current systems, we most probably don't stand a chance. We are facing a disaster of unspoken sufferings for enormous amounts of people. And now is not the time for speaking politely or focusing on what we can or cannot say. Now is the time to speak clearly. Solving the climate crisis is the greatest and most complex challenge that Homo sapiens have ever faced. The main solution, however, is so simple that even a small child can understand it. We have to stop our emissions of greenhouse gases. Either we do that or we don't. You say nothing in life is black or white, but that is a lie, a very dangerous lie. Either we prevent 1.5 C of warming or we don't. Either we avoid setting off that irreversible chain reaction beyond human control, or we don't. Either we choose to go on as a civilization, or we don't. That is as black or white as it gets. There are no gray areas when it comes to survival. We all have a choice. We can create transformational action that will safeguard the living conditions for future generations, or we can continue with our business as usual and fail. This is up to you and me. Some say we should not engage in activism. Instead, we should leave everything to our politicians and just vote for a change instead. But what do we do when there's no political will? What do we do? What do we do when the politics needed are nowhere in sight? Here in Davos, just like everywhere else, everyone is talking about money. It seems money and growth are our only main concerns. And since the climate crisis has never been treated as a crisis, people are simply not aware of the full consequences on our everyday life. People are not aware that there is such a thing as a carbon budget and just how incredibly small that remaining carbon budget is. That needs to change today. No other current challenge can match the importance of establishing a wide public awareness and understanding of our rapidly disappearing carbon budget that should and must become our new global currency in the very heart of our future and present economics. We are at a time in history where everyone with any insight of the climate crisis that threatens our civilization and the entire biosphere must speak out in clear language. No matter how uncomfortable and unprofitable that may be, we must change almost everything in our current societies. The bigger your carbon footprint, the bigger your moral duty. The bigger your platform, the bigger your responsibility. Adults keep saying we owe it to the young people to give them hope, but I don't want your hope. I don't want you to be hopeful. I want you to panic. I want you to feel the fear I feel every day, and then I want you to act. I want you to act as you would in a crisis. I want you to act as if our house is on fire, because it is. Wow. That is inspiring, that speech. And if she wrote that, that is one of the most well-written pieces of information I have come across. I mean, it was incredibly well put together. Not to mention that the message was right on point. Amazing words from Greta Thunberg. Moving on to, so this is barely covered, if at all. I actually didn't even know about this until Jimmy Dore did a video on this, but there was a rally, an Extinction Rebellion rally in New York City a couple days ago. This is from January 28th. Greens demand action at Extinction Rebellion. And this is from a little website, Insider New Jersey. So my first Google search actually had nothing. So Google would not give me anything. I Googled Extinction Rebellion, and it's, the links are like telling you what it is, but no news stories. So I had to look up the news stories, and there were a handful. New York City, New Jersey Greens were out in support of Extinction Rebellion. New York City's first day of action on Saturday, January 26, 2019, also known as the Rebellion Day 1. This was a day of protest. Consisted of multiple nonviolent direct actions, colorful theatrics, and bold banners with powerful messaging. The goal was to raise awareness about the dire state of our planet and the immediate need to address climate change. Extinction Rebellion was formed in the wake of the release of the UN Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change report in October of 2018, which warned that urgent and immediate changes were needed to prevent increases in global warming that could lead to extreme heat, drought, and floods, resulting in global famine, societal disruption, and extreme poverty. This report was a major influence in the rise of this movement. Extinction Rebellion is a global movement that is mobilizing people to act against the impending consequences of climate change and to force their governments to adopt appropriate policies. The group utilizes nonviolent direct action to spread their message about the reality of climate change and highlight that it is imperative for us to act now. Their explicit demands include that governments must tell the truth about the climate and impending ecological emergency, as well as institute policies that reduce carbon emissions and support alternative energy sources. Extinction Rebellion emphasizes the importance of international cooperation. Diane Moxley, a longtime Green and activist out of Garwood, New Jersey, participated in the day's actions and was part of a direct action team that unfurled 2 large banners across Fifth Avenue, causing some traffic delays. Moxley explained, "I participated in this day of action because the news about the effects of climate change keeps getting more and more grim every day, and the serious concern that we are reaching the point of no return as climate chaos spirals out of control." Ruben Mendez, a Green activist who resides, a Green and activist who resides in Perth Amboy, New Jersey, was also involved in the Fifth Avenue action, which shut down the avenue for almost 20 minutes. Mendez was motivated to join the international movement based on its clear demands. "We need real concrete solutions to stop and reverse climate chaos, and we will not cease until a plan is enacted." Tom Violet, a Green out of Farmingdale, New Jersey, spent the day live streaming the actions that began with a rally at the southeast corner of Central Park, followed by a march down Fifth Avenue, and concluded with a series of nonviolent direct actions at Rockefeller Center. "I was really impressed by the amazing visuals and sounds of brass band, drums, chantings, and songs. The energy was incredible as we walked. The marchers interacted with people on the street, handed out literature, and had brief interactions. The crowd was very receptive. This was definitely a positive experience," said Violet. I'm going to link this below. Apparently, so there was actually some arrests that happened. I forget. I think a couple of people, excuse me, a couple of people hung some banners on some monuments. I forget what it is. There's a monument near like an ice skating rink in New York. So a few people actually went to jail that day. Go XR. Godspeed XR and Greta Thunberg and AOC and whoever else is raising their voice about this problem. Finally, I'd like to read something from Counterpunch. This is from last year, and it's titled "The End of Illusion." And I don't know. Hold on one second. As I looked over that article, I realized that I've already read that. So I'm not going to repeat myself. Because when I realized the date on the article was like November 2018, it suddenly clicked that I had read that. So I'm going to read this other article because I have so many articles lined up in my queue. I have too many to read. I actually spent maybe an hour or more the other day just actually deleting because I had too many things in my queue. So I deleted a bunch of stuff because I was like, I'm never gonna go back and get to this. So the news these days is a stream. I try to just swim with the stream and keep up with the flow. This article is titled, "Has U.S. shale oil entered a death spiral?" Let's find out. The bad news coming out of the shale oil fields of America could all be put down to slumping oil prices. That is certainly a big factor, but as investment professionals like to say, when the tide goes out, we all find out who's been skinny dipping. The pattern of negative news from the shale country is not just related to price, however. Oil production, it seems, is being overstated industry-wide by 10% and 50% in the case of some companies, according to the Wall Street Journal. 50%, wow, that's quite large. The CEO of one of the largest players in the industry, Continental Resources, predicted that growth in shale oil production could fall by 50% this year compared to last year. In reality, we should expect worse, as the industry, for obvious reasons, tends to exaggerate its prospects. The place where the damage to investors has become severe is in private equity firms who hold a large portion of the shale oil industry's high-yield debt. The plan for the firms was always to unload the debt on somebody else when better opportunities presented themselves, but the firms overstayed their welcome and are having a hard time even finding a bid in the market for these bonds. Uh-oh. That sounds like a collapse trigger right there. With the big Wall Street players now questioning the value of their existing investments in shale oil, the industry is finding it hard to raise money. Not a single bond sale has come off since November in an industry which must be, sorry, lost my place, which must continuously raise capital to survive. I was trying to find the date on this. This was sent to me on January 30th, but is it from today? I don't know. To add to the problems, the future of U.S. shale oil production seems to be in the Permian Basin in Texas, which has been providing the lion's share of oil production growth for the entire country. But ongoing drought in an already arid West Texas has raised doubts about whether the Permian will have enough water to meet all the demand for fracking new wells. Besides, because of the rapid declines in the rates of production from shale wells, companies must first drill enough new wells to offset the loss of production from previous wells, a task akin to walking up the down escalator. This was not such a difficult task when the shale boom was just beginning, but with the huge increase in the number of operating wells, companies are having to spend more than half of their capital budgets on simply replacing lost production before drilling wells that add to production. That number is expected to reach 75% by 2021. At some point, it could reach 100%. For this reason, some analysts refer to shale oil development as a Ponzi scheme. With rig counts dropping, capital expenditures likely to be cut in the face of low prices, and more of that budget being used simply to replace existing production, it's possible that the death spiral long anticipated by the industry's critics has arrived. Shale players for years have been unable to finance their drilling programs out of the operating revenues, as free cash flow, operating cash flow minus capital expenditures, remains wildly negative for most companies. In other words, what companies spend on acquisition of leases and land, drilling and well completion, current operating expenses, and general and administrative expenses far exceeds the cash generated by their sales of petroleum and related products from existing wells. Wells, not whales. That means the companies must borrow from investors, usually in the form of high-yield debt, or get them to buy new shares in order to raise the money needed not only to drill enough wells to make up for lost production from declining wells, but also to drill enough to grow production, something investors have been counting on to secure the value of their bonds and increase the value of the shares. Oh my God. If the needed capital is not forthcoming, it means that companies will be faced with declining revenues from declining production. With lower operating cash flow and little access to additional capital, these companies will be unable to drill enough wells to offset declining ones. That means even lower revenues in the future, which will mean even lower investment in new wells. That's what a death spiral looks like. Of course, oil prices could revive, and with it, investor interest. No one can know for sure. But the big question is this: the next time oil prices do rise, will investors risk getting caught during a subsequent downturn with shale oil company bonds that can't catch a bid in the market, or shares that could end up worthless? Of course, in the current downturn and oil prices continues, if there might not be a next time for many shale operators. Good news? Who knows? Yeah, it's interesting. I think I read an article a few weeks ago about the fact that low energy prices are a product of the fact that it's not deflation, but the fact that we couldn't, because there's such a disparity in income and that people can't afford things, and there's something about the way the economy is set up right now that it's oil prices are backwards. They should be really high, and they're actually like super low. And the only thing that would really save the fossil fuel industry, and let's hope it doesn't get saved, let's hope it just completely collapses and implodes. But the only thing that would save it would be if the prices went back up to $100 a barrel again, or whatever. I don't know that is a good thing at all for the economy, because we've kind of reached that point, I guess, in the economy where um, any little move of any of the factors, right, derivatives or interest rates or oil prices, or all these things going on, or real estate um, markets, collapsing. There's everything is so tight that if anything, really, if the bottom falls out of any one of these situations, it could definitely be a uh, little Jenga house falling all over the place. Um, if oil prices did go up, that would be terrible because people are hanging on by their fingernails. What is it? 80% of Americans are in debt or living paycheck to paycheck. Quite a few Americans are swimming in debt. You have the student loan problem. You do have a real estate bubble. You have people not being able to make ends meet already. You have an exploding homeless population. If oil prices went up, it would absolutely take the bottom out of the entire economy, just like 2006, 2007, when oil prices went up and stayed up for a long time. Um, who knows? Who knows? I was talking with the guys at Head in the Box last night, and the economy has basically been held together with baling wire and duct tape, and it's been bumping along, barely squeaking by. And then Trump came in, and all of a sudden the stock market took off. But that doesn't mean real wealth of any kind. And it doesn't look like the jobs numbers are really based on anything real. If there are more jobs, they're probably more low-paying jobs, and it's not adding a lot of value to people's lives or the real value to the economy. But they have a good time going like, the economy is booming. It's booming right before the bust, I think. So I don't want there to be an economic collapse. I'd really rather there not be, because it's going to overshadow the entire next presidential election. It would be really great if we could have a presidential election that had that focused on platforms and actual things that could help people's lives. And it'd be great if people could debate about real things like Medicare for all or climate change. But if we have a huge recession right before the election, then that will become everything that everybody talks about. But who knows? Who knows when the timing will happen? Who knows when it will be? Who knows what is going to go on? Timelines are out the window at this point. Nobody knows. One can only guess. One can only just prepare and do your best. If you have a way to stockpile anything, that's a good idea. If you have a way to grow anything, that's a good idea. If you have a way to engage in resiliency of any kind of your lifestyle, if you have a way to downsize, to get out of debt, to hoard some kind of supplies, whatever it is that you can do, I highly suggest it. I'm working on it myself, but it's really difficult because I have the debt thing too, as a lot of people do. Thank you so much for your eyes, your ears, and your conscience. If you would like to support this channel, you can do so at the links below. Until next time, peace.